Commitments today. We're asking parents to make commitments to raise their children in a way that honors God. We're asking people to make commitments and go public with their faith by being baptized. And we're asking all of you to go public and make a commitment of your own. And there are two aspects of the commitment today that we'll be asking you to make and to pray about and to consider whether or not you can actually do that. Commitment number one is the commitment to Jesus. If you've never made a commitment to Jesus before in your life, by the end of today, I hope you will. Today is an opportunity for you to claim this moment as a holy moment and to do something phenomenal in your life as a result of what happens here today. You can symbolize that here with communion. When we come to the end of this little section of our service and we share communion together, if you're not a member of this church, if you haven't ever been here before, if you haven't been to any church in eons, we don't really care. We're glad you're here today. God loves you and He's glad that you're here today. And you can participate with us if you meet a simple set of qualifications. When you eat the bread and dip it in the juice the way we do it here, you're basically making a commitment that you want to associate your life with Jesus. And if you want to do that today, if you can make that commitment today, then you're more than welcome to join us at that moment in our service. We're also going to have, at that same time, we've got these two little books here. I'm going to pick one of these up. And these are our two community covenant or commitment books. On Commitment Sunday, we ask people, we do something different from a lot of churches. We don't have like a long membership list where you take a class, get on the membership list, and then you're on there till you die. We just basically say, hey, we like you enough to know every year if you still like us back. It's like one of those notes in junior high where someone passes you with a checkbox, do you like us, yes or no? Well, this is yes, okay? The other book is maybe. This book is yes. So if you are committed to God and what He's doing in this place, then when we have communion, I've got a pen right here, and I want you to sign this book. Last year we had this many people. This year we could easily get a bunch more. So 2009 is a blank, clean slate. I'll talk more about these commitments in just a moment. Put that there for now. Commitment is a hard word for us because there's something in us that recognizes that only the truly crazy people ever get committed. Yeah, that was good. I tried that out on the people last night and they didn't even get it. So I'm glad it worked. Maybe it's the same people who were here last night who, it clicked. But only the truly crazy people get committed. I just came up with that myself. So, commitment is something that we're kind of afraid of because we know if you step into the water of commitment, you're wet. That's why baptism is a great symbol. You can't get past commitment without saying, I was stupid and didn't mean to make the commitment, or I was lying and didn't want to make the commitment, or something. As soon as you make a commitment, you can't take it back. I was watching the Seinfeld episode this last week, because that's something I do now and then, and George Costanza leaned over to the woman sitting in the car next to him, and he said, I think I love you. And she said, I'm hungry, let's get something to eat. And he wondered, did she hear me? Did she hear me? And once the words are out there, it's, what's all that about? Am I losing battery juice?
No, you're good.
Okay. Once the words are out there, you can't take them back. Commitment is that kind of thing. Well, I want to let you know that God is a God of commitment. He is a God who is deeply committed to you and to me. He always has been, and He always will. And we know that because the Bible uses a very, very deep, powerful, special word when it talks about commitment. That word is covenant. And I'm going to walk you through the ancient covenant that God made with the people of Israel, and I'm going to walk you through the new covenant that God's making to people through Jesus in just brief fashion. And so I want you to, if you have the note sheet in front of you, go ahead and fill out these blanks as we get to them. But first of all, we're going to talk about the ancient covenant. The moment in history where the ancient covenant really becomes real, deep, personal, phenomenal, something amazing happens, is the Passover. The moment in history was the Passover, where God said to the people of Israel as they are languishing in Egypt, He said to them, I am going to lead you out of Egypt. And to lead them out of Egypt, He had to do something with Pharaoh to get Pharaoh to let them go. And so He had this Passover, and the Passover was when the angel of death was going to come through the area and he was going to actually kill the firstborn son of all these Egyptians. But if you were a Hebrew, you could get out of it by simply following God's law and put some blood on your doorpost. The blood was for a sacrifice. The sacrifice was to be used in a feast. And God instituted that this feast and other feasts like it would continue on throughout the centuries. And so the moment in history was the Passover, but then God said we need a moment in the present. We need a present moment to remember this. And the present moment was the institution of the feast, the Passover feast. And it went on for centuries. But even before the Passover happened, and even before the feast took place, there was another thing God had given to the people to signify this covenant. It was a moment for the individual person. Not just for the whole community, not just for history, not for continued remembrance. It was a moment for you, if you were Hebrew. And that moment for a person was birth and circumcision. God said to Abraham, this is what is going to be the sign of this covenant. You had to be born a Jew. And then on the 8th day, if you were a man, you needed to be circumcised. That was the sign for the individual person. You can notice there's a problem with this, though. Not the smallest problem is that you have to be Jewish. That's a problem. The second problem is even harder because you had to be a man. The women in the society weren't necessarily considered fully Jewish, full Hebrews, because they only got to be Hebrews. They only got to be part of God's family through their connection with either their dad or their husband or something like that. It's kind of an isolated sort of deal. Well, Jesus came to change that. And when Jesus comes in the New Testament, which is the ancient word for covenant, so the new covenant, Jesus, on a very special night, where they were celebrating the Passover feast, he begins a new covenant for them. The moment in history of the new covenant is the cross. Jesus dies on the cross, just like that lamb was crucified for the Passover so many years before. The moment in history is the cross. The moment in the present is communion. Jesus says to his followers as they're sitting around this feast, he says, this bread and this cup, take them, eat them, drink them, and whenever you do it in remembrance of me. He says, do this on a regular basis and remember me through it. And by doing so, you will reconnect with history every single time. That's why we do it today. Because every time we do it, we are reconnecting with history on a repeated basis. But even before that, before